Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Laugh and Learn Magic Tool Talk about not magic. That's KNOT, not magic. Harold Terrastash, and we have over here, we have Purple Elephant Deb H, Carta Mancy Mesquite, and we have Chris Barely Balanced Tarot, also known as Conjure Bear Chris, also known as lots of things, just don't call him late for dinner. So, how are you, Chris?
I'm doing okay, except for a cold I'm trying to fight. Everything else is good.
Okay. Deb, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Okay. Angela?
Okay, too.
We're all okay.
All right. Well, something very exciting. We have confirmed for next week at this time, Deb and Angela and I are doing a Woo Woo Witchery and Coffee Club with Jane the Secret Tarot, and we are talking about reading for yourself, because that was a suggestion that we got, and I thought, this is a really good topic. So Jane the Secret has just agreed. This just in.
Yes.
So, and I'm a little excited. So, how about we say hi to some people?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That way we can start, because there's a lot of information to cover. Plucky Heroine is here. Hello, Plucky. Medium Betsy Palmer is here, and she is mentioning the the best chatters who are definitely present. And Medium Betsy Palmer is going to be with Angela, Deb, and me on Tuesday. We're doing readings. We're doing some readings. They might have a bit of a flair to them. They might have an island feel. We're not sure. Hypnicity is here. Hello. Hershey, the shadow reader, is here. Hello. And Chris Yao is here. Okay.
I hope so.
Yeah.
If he's not, go find him.
There you go. Zane, Tarot Token Witchery, is here. Hi, Zane. And so we've got Peter J. Watts is here. Hello, Peter. Good to see you. Jonathan Daly is here. Hi, Jonathan. Nice to see you. Andrea Galvin is here. We have Deanne, Blue Crescent Tarot. Hello. Lottie B, good to see you. And Rishi, we are not doing readings today. We're talking about not magic today. We're not doing readings today. So Andrew, Aquarius Owl, Debbie is here. Hello. And why is there a gnat? Please hold.
Meanwhile, in Texas and Florida, there are nothing but gnats and bugs.
Okay. My goodness.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, everyone who is watching this back. Please like and subscribe. Share this video if you think it was helpful at all. Maruta is here. And Mary Thornberry, good to see you. So I don't know much consciously about not magic, full disclosure. So, but apparently backstage I was told that I'm doing not magic when I didn't know about it. So, but guess who were the ones that were telling me that? So we will talk about that. So, and yeah, not magic, cannot magic. Yes. Okay. So, let's start with this topic, which is, what is not magic? So who would like to start?
Oh, well, it's anything you tie a knot in with intention.
Anything you tie a knot in with intention.
You
Okay.
can sew, you can knit, you can crochet, you can tat lace, you can do macrame. If
Mhm.
you tie a knot in a piece of thread, you're doing knot magic.
Okay. All right.
If you're doing it with intention,
Yes.
you're doing not magic.
Okay. Chris, what about you?
That sounds completely appropriate to me. I'm still learning not magic too. So, but yeah, that
Mhm.
sounds like a good definition to me.
I would support that also, and I think it is one of those things. Not magic has been around for a very long time.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's been practiced in many cultures.
Yes.
So get that out of your brain. Debbie said, I consider my crochet projects not magic.
They are. Yep.
I would agree with you, especially for if you're crocheting with intention. I knit,
Mhm.
so I do that. I knit with intention. So,
I would also consider what sailors do with knots to be not magic.
uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. Making nets, making sails.
Yes. Oh, Mary Thornberry has a question. Even tying your shoes?
Can
Yes.
be. It can be.
If you tie them with intention.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually thinking about that as if I were a parent and I were helping tie my child's shoe, I'd be casting a protection spell on them every freaking time I tied their
Mhm.
shoes.
Yes.
Andrea has a nice comment. Scottish sweaters and the
Mhm.
Irish also. You'll see the fishermen in these woolen sweaters, and the particular, we might call it braid work or something, but the different designs that go down their shirts
Mhm.
were for specific families, so they would know who washed up on shore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Indeed, yes.
But it was also with, for
Protection.
protection and stuff too. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a really good example.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, it all ties together.
Yes. It does all tie together.
It all ties together. But you're right. The Scottish clans, the sweaters, as they were made specifically so you could identify the clans.
Mhm.
Yes.
Jonathan shared, I used to make my necklaces with macrame. Ooh, not magic, with wearable crystal grids. Just got to download.
Absolutely.
Start making them.
Mhm.
Start making them. Yeah, definitely.
So not magic has been around as long as people have been tying things together.
Mm-hmm.
Or even making baskets. When you weave a basket at the end, you tie a knot.
True.
Mhm.
It has potential to be one of the oldest forms of magic humankind has ever done, because even before we had cords and things to use, women could not into their hair. Well, I guess men too, because they probably had long hair when we were out wild as well. But
Mhm.
it's kind of been considered very much a woman's kind of magic in a lot of cultures too. But spinning and weaving and all of that's an extension of playing with your hair.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, and not magic. There's a range of things. Zane said, "I love me a bit of not magic. I bought a 100-yard spool of red cord just to have on hand for random not magic." Yeah, yeah. Um, yes, macrame plant hangers, good juju for plants. And Hershey says, "I tie knots in my hair." Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And okay, so here's a question: when do you use not magic?
All the time.
Could you give for what purposes?
For protection, it's an immediate one.
Yes.
Okay.
That's primarily how I use it, is for protection, but you can use it for anything. Your imagination is the only limitation.
Mhm. You can
Okay.
do it to attract abundance.
Okay. And Hershey says pretty much every day.
Mhm.
Yeah. Grannies and aunties crocheting a
Mhm.
trousseau. Yep. And yeah, if you say a spell while you're tying their shoes, then yes.
Absolutely.
Zane says I use it pretty much for pretty much any kind of manifestation magic.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we will say more about that.
We will.
I have that starred, so we've got that one. Chris, what about you? When do you use not magic?
Well, I haven't used it very much. Like I said, I've only consciously started doing not magic about a year ago, so I'm still figuring that stuff out myself. But I've used it in binding spells. I've only done 3 of those in my life, but that's always with a good several knots in it.
Sure.
And I've used it for spell work too, like to fix the spell. I did a jar spell that's still cooking with the knot in it, and I use it for protection.
Yeah. I personally haven't used not magic consciously very much, but apparently when I'm I knew knitting, I could knit my intentions in. But apparently when I'm quilting, I'm also doing not magic. Right, Deb?
You are. You are.
They were like going, do you ever tie it, a knot at the end? And I'm like, no, I just back over it. It's like, well, you're making a knot, Gerald. Okay.
This is a type of magic too that can go way beyond people who call themselves witches and magicians and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
because
Yes.
you see a bunch of old Southern Christian ladies with their quilting bees and tying prayers into every single knot they make for the babies or whoever they're making them for.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I have my parents' wedding quilt that my grandmother made, and it's absolutely an example of not magic.
Of course. Yeah. I'm just going through some of my notes because there's a lot of cases when we've done when not magic shows up. Apparently I have things like okay, think about things like when we say tying the knot, tying one on, and this is the thing. It's just like going. It's like a lot of times you remember that friendship bracelets and all of that stuff. Those are examples of not magic.
Yes.
They are.
And I have certainly overachieved because now I have so many notes I can't even find what I was for.
And it just came to me too that when you do a hand fasting ceremony, that's absolutely not magic.
Yes. Hand fasting. Yeah, definitely. Okay. I'm going to get caught up on chat because people were, Teresa is here. Hi, Teresa. And tatting in making lace curtains. My grandmother did it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Betsy said, I sometimes tie a pretty bow around an intention bundle if I'm not burning it right away. Sure. Well, and think about it. Okay, so here you go, everybody. Every time you tie a knot or tie a bow, there is the potential for not magic.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean,
use thread or cord to bind something. That's not magic.
Yes. And Andrea said used to tie knots for feather wands used in smoke ceremonies, smudging. Absolutely. And yeah, a lot of lace and yeah, the ties that bind. Yes. Amanda Carroll is here. Hi, Amanda. Endless knot. Yes.
Yes.
And book binding. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes people will actually, they'll, for like Book of Shadows, they'll have a band that goes around and you can tie that. So,
Yeah.
So, gift wrapping. Yep.
Yeah.
Calla Lizzie's here. Hi, Calla Lizzie.
Liz.
And, I wonder if rosaries were a permanent knot in prayer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Whether they understood that that was what it was or not, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, prayer beads on a whole. If you go back into Indian and Asian traditions too,
Mhm.
and from the Middle East, shepherds used to tie tie knots in strings to count their sheep, and
Yeah.
they would count the sheep using those knots. So before beads, there were knots in those strings for
Yeah.
prayers.
Yeah. So I knot up my oracle deck with a bandana. Absolutely. Are any knots not magic?
They can be.
Yes, any knot can be.
Yeah. You use knots for cord cutting ceremonies. Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. So, but yeah. And okay. Other comments about when you use not magic?
One of the oldest pieces of not magic for me is this right here. You've heard of taking the measure of a man or measure of a person. We did that in my first coven after initiation. So the knots in here in this cord are the measurements of my crown from head to toe, across my crown, chest. I don't even remember what else now, but and then it's given back to you. I don't know if covens still have that tradition or not. It's given back to you as a sign of trust, because if you have the measure of someone, this is a voodoo doll. This is me. This is me
Oh,
in a
yeah.
string. If someone has this, they can burn it. They can do whatever they want to curse me or bless me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Mary Thornberry said the Boy and Girl Scouts learning tying knots, they need to know it can be magic.
Yeah.
Well, some of them may already know that.
Some of them,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
And also hypnicity said umbilical cords. So if you go back to when midwives mostly delivered babies, midwives were
Mhm.
generally thought of as witches.
Yeah.
So they could be blessing the baby with a knot.
absolutely. 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 Calla Lizzie said, I wonder if people attach prayers or intentions to necklaces, strings of pearls, and so on. Anytime I've done that, I do that. And look, Angela's holding one up right now.
Yep.
So,
And I have done it as well, but then I repurposed it into new not magic.
Mhm.
So,
yeah. Okay. So this is where I'm curious about how you came. How did you come to learn about not magic? And I'm gonna.
It came natural, actually.
Okay, what does that mean, Angela? That it came naturally?
Well, like for my daughter's wedding, I made her earrings and a necklace for her wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and I put intention into that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
I've been doing it since I was a child, doing knots for different things.
Okay. And who taught you to do that?
Nobody. That was kind of intuitive.
Okay. So are you saying you were an overachiever as a child?
Yes.
Surprise, nobody is surprised.
so, and I have done much the same thing, but I became conscious of it a couple of years ago
Mhm.
when I read some examples of people using not magic and the outcomes that they had. And so at that time, I started to consciously do not magic.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my first example of it was probably I became aware of it like 10 years or so ago when I was doing some studying. I was taking a class and a woman was talking about creating a form of a witch's ladder, which we'll talk about.
Mhm.
And she was actually tying in the strength of the 13 moons for a particular spell. So, okay, so maybe the spirit guides taught you in your soul, Angela.
Yeah.
Yeah. And love the gifts for your daughter. Yeah, that's really cool. That's very special. That's very special. And this just in, medium Betsy Palmer just coughed up a knot of something on left side of my throat. Gross. I hope it's done. Nalani said, used to macrame, never realized it was spiritual. Then any creative outlet has become spiritual for me. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So, but yeah. Chris, when did you become to learn not magic?
It's something I've been aware of for a long, long time because I've heard of it usually in passing in stuff that I've read. I don't recall anything that ever went specific like this is how you do not magic, but I've heard of not magic being done. So it's about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. I was in one of Kelly Fitzgerald's classes,
Uh-huh.
and she was demonstrating some of the stuff that she did with not magic. She loves to do not magic. I'm like, yeah, I think I might give that a conscious application and see if I can bring that into my practice as well because it's very old.
Yeah. And I think it is one of those things that when we become aware of it, we're going to see it in lots of places.
Yes.
And yeah, Hypnicity said cat's cradle. When we were doing stuff as kids or as adults, I haven't done that in a while, but I wonder if I could still learn how to do it. So, Jezree is here. Hello. And so not magic. There is a long history, and trust me, as I was doing I searched at my library and I found some information about not magic. And the title of this is called By Not of One the Spells Begun, by Not of Two It Cometh True, Magic, Altered States in Multiple Realities. This was published in October of 95. And so it's an article about mind and body, supernatural mythology. So there's a lot of information out there. Some of them, for entertainment purposes only. Use this as you can. So, I don't know where I was going with that, but okay, let's get caught up on a few comments. What about knots in the body, our muscles, when they are knotted up and we are in pain? How can we make magic out of that? Maybe ask them to go away. Well, you could, but you could also, and I'm guessing, I've never done this, but you could tie a knot to represent that and then actually untie it as you're saying healing prayers. Angela's got a big smile on her face, so I'm onto something.
Yes, you are.
You
got
could definitely do that, because not magic, it's not just necessarily binding something together, it's also releasing something.
Yes.
So anything else you want to say about that one? So
well, it brought to mind a noose.
well, yes, the hangman's noose. Yep.
Yes, if someone were hanged, wouldn't their loved ones untie that knot afterwards to release the soul?
Yes, very much so. I could see that. Okay, Kiba is here. Hi, Kiba. Good to see you. And Hershey said, I learned as a child a ghost that was around me at the time told me to sit down and make a knot anklet, and then told me to make a 1,000-year-old fable. They told me a 1,000-year-old fable about a child who would need knots to walk. I love these stories. Stringing a mala involves lots of knots. Yes,
It does.
I could definitely see that. Taro, your way. Tom has been he's been naughty. Nobody is surprised.
I'm not surprised either.
It could be Calla Lizzie if they are tied with intention.
Yes.
It goes back to that key thing. Anytime you are doing magic, it's all about intention.
It is.
It's all about intention. So
Intention and believing that the intention will come
yes,
to fruition.
yes. Tony is here. Antoinette Tarot and Jewelry is here. Hello. Need to watch back from the start. So okay. And Mary Thornberry is going to be applying some of what we learned. Yes, surgeons learn lots of knots.
They do.
They have to.
Yes.
Here you go. A resource book, Knot Magic by Sarah Bartlett. That's great. And oh, wait a minute. Psyche W is here. Hello. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. And okay, so here, let's do, everybody knows what I'm going to do now, right? This section of the video is brought to you by the word not. Everyone say it with me. Not. Not. An interlacement of the parts of one or more flexible bodies forming a lump or knob, as for fastening or tying together. Don't be naughty. Just like, share, and subscribe. Not. Had to be done, right?
Yes, it did.
All right. Lots of wonderful chatters here today, so thank you, everyone. And I'm just okay. Okay, so let's share some personal examples. And again, this is for entertainment purposes only, everybody. And Chris and I've talked about this before. One of the 4 pillars of the Magus is to keep silent. So you may not understand exactly why a knot was used or why what was created was why it was created or what it's supposed to do. So be respectful about that. However, take good notes. And I will share an example. This was given to me by a coven mate. This is a Yule gift, and it's to help you not lose your keys.
Oh, nice.
So I do not know, and this is where, to be honest with you, I'm not checking the number of knots. I didn't ask anything. It's just, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to be putting it back on my keys. So, but yeah. So, Chris, I'm going to have you go because I imagine Deb and Angela have all of the examples.
Yes.
All of the stories. So, Chris, I think you had 2. You said.
I just have. This is the example of taking the measure of someone. So it's the only knotted example I have. But this is my current cord that I use. Unless it's a spell that I need to get rid of the knot or do something else with it, I'll use a different piece of cord. But I like to reuse the same cords. The cord itself becomes like a tool for me.
Yes.
But I do want to emphasize that you got 3 kinds of magic kind of going on. You've got the knotting itself is magical. If you're making a big blanket, the knot itself is magical, but the unknotting is sometimes how you release the magic. I know there's old stories of fishermen or fishermen's wives who would either themselves or see the local cunning person in the community. If you go out when there's a strong eastern wind blowing, you can knot that wind into a string, and so you could actually take pieces of strings with knots on them with an eastern wind or a western wind, whatever wind you needed, and if the sailing ship was stalled at some point, you could unknot the
Yes.
direction you need the air to come from, and that is actually preserved in the Odyssey.
Mm.
Odysseus at one point is getting help from Hermes, and Hermes gives him a bag with the west wind or east wind in it with a knot, and
Nice.
tells him later on in the story he needs a wind, and he's able to unknot that, and boom, they're on their way. But I'm kind of an air person anyway, so and I learned this from Kelly Fitzgerald. She will go make a knot or make knots to preserve the power of a thunderstorm when one is around, and then when you need to release that in a magical working of some kind, then you unknot that spell in ceremony and release that energy back into it. So it's a way of preserving energy and power. But you could even do that in a meditative session, and you want to imbue, something with that energy, you can knot it and store it for later. I like it as a storage device.
Yeah. And Tony shared still done or carried today, Chris.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah. And Maruta said jewelers who do wire wrapping can make them not magic. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's and I would say that's one thing then what we can be aware of is not magic can be used to capture something and contain the energy of something that's going on.
Yes.
So much like a jar,
Mhm.
Yes.
it's the same sort of idea.
Yeah.
But yeah. So okay, Angela, Deb.
Okay, I've got a bit of not magic that I did to contain a psychopath recently.
I'm going to embiggen you so that we can start.
Let me get it over this way. I put my first knot was a piece of my spirit tree to ground this person.
Mm-hmm.
Then I put the second knot was a bell so that he could be seen wherever he went. I put a piece of black tourmaline in there to contain his negativity. And because this was to protect a person I love, I braided my hair into it. And then I put a piece of bone to remind him that his bones could be broken. I put a pin to pin him down.
Uh-huh.
Police tape to let him know his possible outcome. A key to lock him out of the house. I put a piece of cheap jewelry. It's a dollar sign to show him there's money out there for him. And then I put a feather in the bottom so that this spell would be carried to him on the wind. Now, the funny part of this thing was that the person I gave this to and I and the psychopath, we were only 3 of the people in the room. There were 9 people in the room at the time, and only the 3 of us saw it. Although I handed it to her right out in front of everybody.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And it worked beautifully.
Here, and that deserves a Fanthorpe.
Thank you.
And, Tony said, amazing explanation, Angela. I need to learn more about the ladders. And what you were holding up is also known as a witch's ladder.
Mm-hmm.
How many items were in that?
9.
9. Okay, that's a good number. And
Mm-hmm.
and I also think that this is a good point to say the number of knots you use is important.
Mm-hmm.
And the color of what you are using to knot
Mm-hmm.
can be important.
Yes, that's why I picked the red thread.
Yeah. And crochet and cross stitching is my personal knot magic. Also, Chinese feng shui decorations have a lot of knots. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And Hershey said, I do similar, Angela, when I need to add some protection for my loved ones.
Mhm.
So and Deanne is like going, dang, that's legit.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
And
Go ahead.
I have a couple of examples. One you see almost every time I'm ever on a live or upload a video, and that's my fairies back there. I made that working when I moved into this apartment as a protection.
Mhm.
And it has, I believe it has 13 knots, and it's the fairies are knotted together. You may not be able to tell that, but they are knotted together with flowers and some
red
ribbon. Mhm.
ribbon.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I have this witch's ladder that I
Mhm.
made also for protection. It hangs near my front door. It has feathers, bells, and bones.
Mhm.
And then I have this that I made specifically for my staff, my walking staff, but then I needed to have it to walk with. So this is
Oh
on
wow.
my bookcase. And so I made it with things that were important to me
Mhm.
for protection, for health, and for good fortune for my family. And so I made it with partly with a necklace that I had strung myself out of bone. And some of those bone pieces are in
Mhm.
the.
Wow.
So I can't tell you how many knots are in this.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot.
I bet there's a lot too. And this hangs on my altar.
Okay. Mhm.
I have made charms for my child. I have made
Mhm.
I don't know. I use not magic all the time. It's a very powerful form of magic.
Yes.
Very old, and the intention is really what makes it. And using something that's important to you, so everybody knows that I love elephants. So of course this has elephants in it.
Sure.
And they are bone elephants. So using something that's important to you, something that means something to you or the person you're making for,
Yes.
that makes the magic more powerful and more unique to the
Mhm. Yeah.
individual.
Yeah, and I would say, a key thing with any type of magic is what you are using doesn't have to be expensive.
Mm-mm.
It can be reused.
Yes.
It can be repurposed, and I think
Mhm.
that's an important thing to keep in mind. Oh, and Tony just called you an overachiever, and so there was a lot of love for that.
This
And
is the staff I used that it used to hang on. So so
wow.
it's long enough to coil around this staff.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And this just in, don't mess with Angela.
No, I wouldn't.
So, and Tony asked, is 9 the traditional ladder technique?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I
I've
typically use.
I've always heard 9. I've occasionally heard 13, but 9 and 13 are good witchy magic
Mhm.
numbers that go way, way back too. So,
Yes.
um,
There's some of the research that I found, I've seen them go up to 9, but I've also seen them go up to 13.
Yes.
Mhm.
And a lot of times in the casting or the tying of the knots, you are saying something like, by the knot of one, the spell's begun. By the knot of two, it cometh true. By the knot of three, thus shall it be. By the knot of four, 'tis strengthened more. By the knot of five, so may it thrive. By the knot of six, the spell we fix. By the knot of seven, the stars of heaven. By the knot of eight, the hand of fate. By the knot of nine, the thing is mine. So
That is the first thing I ever learned from about Witch's Ladder. That's the Witch's Ladder. You can do that without a knot if you don't have anything to knot with, because you're talking about the strings, the webs of fate, all of that stuff. There is a TV show. It was based on a book, Discovery of Witches, and that rhyme and the knotting became a central motif in there. It shows how you have progressed in your power, but she uses it at the very end of the show. She's finally mastered all 9, and she uses it. It's a really cool visuals, especially when she goes back in time to the Elizabethan coven in London and is learning knot magic directly from them. It's really cool way to tie the whole show together.
Yeah. And there are, and again, I have a lot of notes that I've taken, just searching. Use your brain when you're searching things on the internet. Not everything is true. If it doesn't seem right, and then it's not right. Trust your intuition. So I'm going to get caught up in chat. Blue Crescent Tarot said, have a ton of my grandmother's costume jewelry. Know what I'm doing with some of that. Absolutely. And Andrea said, how can chatters make protection for themselves if we are going into some chat rooms where questionable energy might be hanging out? I'm going to star that one because I want to come back to that. Amanda said, you've given some great art magic ideas. Betsy shared, my dagger has ribbons with silver lion and bear, clear quartz crystal, black druzy, and feathers. That's great. And Calla Lizzie said, that's a hell of a staff and a hell of a knot working. Jonathan said, I've heard 9 or 13 for Witches' Ladders. Kaylee is here, Fogo Pogo. Pisces Greeter is here. Hi. Nancy at Crohn's Intuition is here, who will be reading with me and Jane the Secret Tarot on my channel at 10 a.m. on Monday. So don't forget that. And yeah, by knot of 9, the spell is mine. Yep, yeah. I've heard that too. Yes. Oh, and saw it on Discovery of Witches. Snap. There you go, Chris. So, yes, when she pulls the threads of energy together and tie it together, yeah. And Jonathan shared, I'm vaguely remembering that the Witch's Ladder with 13 is for protection and the 9 is for drawing something to you. And Rain's Kitchen and Garden. Hello, Rain. Good to see you. I'm surprised you're not canning your 100 pounds of tomatoes. It's like crazy. It says, I love knot work to help with anxiety.
Yes.
When you're all tied up in knots.
Yep.
Ooh, look at that. Yeah. And Rossi's here. Oh, and Maruta said, activating a grid is tying energy knots between the crystals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And a lot. Go ahead.
Sorry, the Native American Dreamcatcher.
Yes.
I've got one above me, especially when you have the old kind that are actually there's a little circle in the middle. I don't know how they make them. There's a little circle in the middle with the twine that they use, and it's like a spider web pattern. It's so cool. So cool.
So I have one of those in my car with
feathers in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Rain said, I've canned 200 and the next 100 comes tomorrow. Tomato nightmare. Holy mackerel.
Yes, it is.
Tomato. So, okay. Medium Betsy Palmer said, Reed, Discovery of Witches. Gotta say, I thought the male lead was miscast. His vibe did not seem to match the character from the book. I adored the books. I did not watch the show because nothing is going to be better than what was going on in my brain. So I wasn't even going to give it a try. Okay. So Not Magic has a lot of purposes driven by your intention. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can use anything of value that relates to what your intention is, or to the intention or outcome that you want for another person. If you're making something for someone else, like I have done with my son, I've made
Sure.
those.
Okay. We are at 46 minutes already, so I want to, okay. So I want to answer this, and then I want to go into the best chatters questions because I've highlighted some of those.
Okay.
But what are some best practices when using Not Magic?
To be very clear on your intent.
Yes.
Yes.
And I also make sure that my space is protected and sacred as I start to do my work.
Yes. Chris, what about you? Do you have some best practices?
I don't know any best practice specifically just for Not Magic, but just magic in general. Make sure you have clear intentions. You know, all of the same stuff you do for any sort of magic working.
Yeah. I do think that I think best practices for me would include Not Magic can be used for any type of magic. And the type of magic that you are doing helps to guide what you are using when you're not. So if you are, let's say you're wanting money, you're wanting to draw money to you, you're going to want to perhaps use a green thread to be able to draw that to you. What do you got, Angela?
Chinese coins.
Chinese coins. Hold those up again. There you go. Yes.
A wrapper of currency.
Okay.
Wrapper.
So
You might want to add some small bells to bring in attention to it. What else have I got here? Oh, sweetgrass. You can braid that in with your string to bring in good energy with it.
Yes.
And then, of course, feathers. And then there's also, you could bring in some High John the Conqueror root and tie that in.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that. What was that called again?
High John the Conqueror.
Okay. And what is that?
It's a plant root. That's
Okay.
Really strong
and-
protection.
Okay. So, so I think other best practices.
Cleanse your materials before you work.
I also would say to keep it to yourself what you're doing,
Yes.
because I would imagine you don't want people coming into your house touching and feeling stuff. It's like, first of all, I never go into anybody's residence and touch stuff on their walls because I go, that's an altar and I'm looking at it from across the room, and then I'm going to ask permission if I can go closer because that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
I'm all about respecting boundaries. So, but High John is used for court cases and fair judge.
Yes.
Yeah. Toadstool Tarot. You've missed the naughtiness. It's already done, Robin. You missed it. You missed it. Chris has his pants on now. Sorry. Okay. So get curious, and I would say a best practice would be to notice what you're setting your intention for,
Mm-hmm.
be very clear about it, and acquire the things that support that.
Yes, and acquire them freely and openly. Do not steal things from people to do your magic working with.
Well, yes, because you don't want, let's just say you want a good quality item to be
Yep.
able to do your magic, and if you cleanse it before,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time you can tell it's like, ooh, this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Trust your gut with that.
Yes.
And go ahead, Deb.
Be aware that this is a very powerful form of magic.
Mm-hmm.
So be very clear on your intention. You don't want an outcome that you don't want.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I would start small and
Mhm.
build. I'm a big fan of and I think you probably are too, Chris. I'm a big fan of doing things in sets of 3
Yes.
because they can build. So it doesn't have to be done all at once. It can grow and evolve.
Yes.
Each time you do it, you're bringing that energy forth. So
Absolutely.
because and so I want to go back to that. I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Let me get on my soapbox here. We all know I have one. You can do magic at any time. You do not have to wait for the perfect time, because the perfect time is never going to show up.
Absolutely.
And my high priestess once said to me, the full moon and the new moon are equally powerful.
Mhm.
Just the way you work with them adjusts.
Yes.
So the same is true for knot magic.
Mhm.
The color, the number of knots, the type of knot you put in
Mhm.
can also, if you were a Girl Scout, Boy Scout, sailor, whatever, and you know the different types of knots, pay
Mhm.
attention to that, because that could be very important as well. So knot magic is oftentimes it's really old. In this book, Backwoods Witchcraft,
Mhm.
I'm browsing this for an upcoming conversation, and one of the things is like, if you're interested in, let's see if I can find it. Okay, for gossip, again, for entertainment purposes only. An old trick for this is to catch their voice, get a string and begin to tie a knot in it. Call for them when you're around them, and when they answer, without them knowing, pull the knot tight. The more knots you can get before they come, the stronger the spell will be.
Tying some tongues and sealing some lips.
I like that.
Do it. Yes. So, okay. All right. I do want to get, there have been some really, really wonderful comments. So I'm going to go through those. And Rain said, good advice, Gerald. I used to wait for moon phases, timing. I was too rigid with magical practices. Now it's anything goes. I feel like doing it, I do it. And I think that matters. I think that makes it more powerful. Yes. Okay. So, yes, tying your shoe,
Mhm.
Mary, definitely can be. So now everybody is going to be, if you have something to be tied, pay attention to how you tie it. So I love that. Jonathan, stay tuned, is going to be making knot magic with wearable crystal grids. Stay tuned.
Nice.
Stay tuned. The red thread is something that's a good standard, Zane, because of all of the different spiritual paths association with the red thread. It's in Kabbalah, Chinese. It's in lots of places. The thread of life.
Mhm.
Okay, so Andrea asks, say more about protection.
Okay, protection, you can use anything essentially to do protection. You can use just knots. But you can pull in other things like I did with this one, bringing in the police tape, the key
Uh-huh.
to lock things up, the pin to pin them down. Think of things that if you're protecting yourself against another person, you want to get things that'll tie them in knots. Pardon the pun, but yeah.
Well, and I okay, Deb.
I generally use for protection, I use feathers, bells, and bone.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know why. It just seems like the right thing to me to do. And then I generally do, I take special care with the knots. So
Uh-huh.
if I'm knotting in a feather, I want to make sure the feather stays in
Yes.
the working. If I'm knotting in a bell, I
Mhm.
want to make sure the bell stays. If I'm knotting in a bone bead, I want to make sure I have knotted it in such a way that it won't fall off.
Yes.
So those things represent maybe elements to me. And then with, I use natural sisal usually.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's what is important to you, what feels like the right thing to you to put into your protection
Mhm.
not working. Just make sure it means something to you. It
Yes.
relates to, in some way, what you're doing. So if it's protection, then say words to that effect as
Mhm.
you're making the
Yeah.
knot. Be
And-
very clear.
Yes. And saying words, it doesn't have to be complicated. If a Hail Mary is what makes you feel good and protected, then you say all the Hail Marys that you need to say. If you need to say the Our Father, you need to say grace or something like that, because in those words that you use, as you're saying, Deb, it builds that energy. It ties it
Absolutely.
together.
So it's what's important to you. What means protection to you? If you are a religious person and medals mean something to you, use
Mhm.
medals.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
if
And
you're calling on saints, use that. If you, whatever is important to you, whatever your belief system is, use that.
I like for personal protection, I still like things that I can wear. So I haven't ventured into putting things in my knots yet. My witch's ladder would just be, the 9 knots on the string, but you could do that in ceremony
Absolutely.
as a general way to cast a spell and then carry that with you. And if you need a spell, you just start with the first knot.
Mhm.
The knot of one, the spell's begun. You can do that in a meditative sort of trance. But for general protection stuff, I will make just one knot with a charm that I used already for that, and then I can slip this just like under here. Nobody knows I've got one
got
knot or 9 or 13. They don't even see it.
Yeah. And Calla Lizzie said any piece of poetry could be used
Yeah.
as long as it means something to you.
Yes.
Yes. And I would also encourage you to, I think, as we become whatever you want, expanded, we're becoming more aware, we're being more authentic. And if you see something that catches your attention, you're reading a book, write it down in a book, note who said it, where you saw it, because those are things that could be really useful to you.
Yes.
It could be very, very useful to you. And yes, Nalani, untying knots can be healing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Much the same way as if somebody's got knots in their back, you
Mhm.
tie those knots and then you actually do. And I would imagine, I'm not a Reiki practitioner, but I imagine you can put a whole lot of Reiki into that and
Oh, yeah.
allow that to unfold. So,
And your words don't have to rhyme. You don't have to have a poem Poetry is nice. It's pretty to listen to. But what's important is, do the words mean something to you? Write down your own spell.
Yes.
I don't write anything down,
Mm-mm.
as everyone knows. So I haven't got the slightest idea what I said when I made these,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but I can tell you they work. So
Yes.
that's what's important.
Yes. Andrea also said, say more about the ceremony around knots. I think we've referenced that. It's the intention, it's the environment.
Yeah.
You create that environment. Andrea, if you are a person who lighting incense and lighting a candle means something to you and it helps to elevate your energy, then boom, do it.
Yep.
Chris, anything to add about the ceremony around knots?
No, because ceremony, that's personal to everyone, unless you're in an actual shamanic tradition that's been transmitted to you, or one of the few other religions that still have these kind of long traditions. They'll have specific ways of doing things.
Yes.
But for most of us, we've invented this stuff for ourselves or hodgepodged it like magpies. So whatever creates ceremony for you creates a sacred place, a sacred space
Mhm.
to open up and do your work in. I did also want to say there's one other really old form of not magic we haven't mentioned yet. It stayed popular in the British Isles for a long time, but this goes all the way back to Mesopotamia, and that's simply taking a piece of cloth and tying your prayers on a tree. You can still see trees in Turkey today that's like loaded down with all sorts of people tying their wishes or knots onto
Yeah.
trees with a bit of
Well,
fabric.
and the prayer flags.
Yep.
So I want
I
to say I want to say hi to Kristen Louise. Hello, Kristen Louise. I saw your post. I'm thinking about you.
we all
And
Mhm.
yes, we all are. And okay, getting back because we still have a whole bunch of Andrew. I hope that helped.
say one more thing about the ceremony.
No, you can say two more things about ceremony, not one, two.
A while back, someone in our community who is a shaman made a prayer tree. And so what she did was she breathed the prayers into a bag. She tied knots in the bag and tied the bags to the tree so
Ooh.
that the entire tree was covered with prayers. And I would consider that ceremonial, not magic,
Yeah.
because when she opens those, then the prayers will be released.
Yes, that's cool. Was that your two things, or was that just one? Because we're not here.
That was my two things.
That was your two things. Okay. This is a great discussion. I have to say the best chatters are here and really, really adding this. And if you're like me and you watch the playback, share this with people because it's really awesome. And okay. What about knots in the body? Okay, we talked about that. Marita said, has anyone mentioned cross stitching? Also, Chinese, we talked about that. See, these are so good. Stringing a mala involves lots of knots. And I think it's really powerful. You can buy your own mala beads, but if you create them, you're creating a magic about them.
Yes.
And it would also be that sense of magic and protection and all sorts of things.
Yes.
So I want to put this resource book up there again. Okay. Max will get a belt promotion at karate tonight. They face away from the sensei to tie their new belts, 2 knots, and then turn back to face him or her. Oh, nice.
Mhm.
Nice. And Andrea said, I bought a bag of tatting done by a 90-year-old woman who had passed, was the bag of every tatting she had learned from childhood to her 90s. And I stitched all examples into a curtain that I hung. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's incredible. Amanda, I'm glad you're loving the discussion. I am too. It's like awesome. And okay. Thomas from Terrier Way said Mark Twain took his name for 2 knots in a rope used to demark the depth of water deep
Yeah.
enough to float a riverboat. Yes.
Yes.
See? Best chatters are showing up. We're all learning stuff, or we're remembering stuff. Crochet and cross stitching is my personal knot magic.
Mhm.
I think if someone gives you some knots and some cross stitch, I would totally treasure that. That's incredible. I'm going to put this up there again. Don't mess with Angela. Don't mess with Angela. Don't mess with Angela.
No.
Okay, Teresa said, I'm finding this interesting. Good. And okay. How can chatters make protection for themselves if we are going into some chat rooms where questionable energy might be hanging out? I have opinions about this, but does anyone want to go first?
Well, I always just put up protection automatically before I go onto a show or before I go into a chat room. I do clear my sacred space and set my protections as I normally do every day.
Yes. I do something similar anytime before I am doing a live. I have a process or a ceremony that I do to keep myself and my guest and everybody in chat safe.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is, Andrea, is if the chat room where there's questionable energy, I leave. I leave, and then I will watch the playback without the chat, because guess what? I'm an adult, and if I don't like something, I'm going to leave, and I'm not going to make a fuss that I've left.
Mm-mm.
I'm just going to take my toys and go home.
I will very often not engage in the chat at all, and sometimes I'll even hide it if I'm watching something live and the energy in the chat room is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
But I also do the same thing that Angela and Gerald do. I make my space, my personal space, sacred and safe, and
Mhm.
then I make the internet space sacred and safe.
Yeah. And I love how Ms. Tarot D, if you haven't all watched her, why? But
Exactly.
she's got a show tonight. So, but she actually, she cleanses the space. She has a fan of ostrich feathers. She sprays the fan with smudge and then uses that to clear the space.
She
Oh, I
does.
like that.
Yes, she does.
No. Yeah, it's really great. It's really great. Andrea said in medicine, lodge prayers are tied in bundles from the ceremony.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Jonathan is putting in some potential links. And okay. Yeah, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
Mhm.
Yep. So Andrea, I hope that helps.
So those yellow ribbons were specifically for safe return of loved ones.
Mhm.
So again, protection.
And sometimes protection is not being visible by those who might cause you harm.
Mhm.
Yes.
So remember that. It's just like going, it's not always about battling against someone. It's just them not seeing you. You are not of interest to them.
Mhm.
And one of the great things that I learned was, it's like, if you want to move somebody on who's giving you a hard time, or you want them to stop giving you a hard time, clear the way so that they find something better for themselves.
Yes.
Therefore, they are out of your area.
It's always more effective if it's done in a loving way.
Mhm.
Yes.
Diversion is defense.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good T-shirt. Diversion is defense.
Animals do it all the time.
Yes. And to that point about manifestation is yes, the key thing to remember is One thing that you can change, you can definitely change, is yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
You can change your attitude. You can change your approach. You can change a lot of things about what you do. And therefore, you're the only one who can do it. It's really hard to change somebody else,
Mhm.
especially against your will. And then there's this stuff called karma and kickback and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but Rain, that's a great question. Thank you. Hypnicity said, I have 3 dream catchers with feathers. One has rose quartz, one amethyst, and one tiger's eye. Lovely. And Andrea said, dream catchers intentionally have one knot, mistake knot. A shamanic teacher taught me that little piece of information. And yes, in Native American or indigenous cultures, nothing is perfect because only the divine is perfect.
Mhm.
So there's always a flaw. Intention is everything. Yep. Does the cord need to be natural materials or does synthetic work as well? Thomas, or your way asked. Go ahead.
I will say in a pinch, it doesn't matter what the heck it's made of. But for me, my personal aesthetic, I try to get things that are, I like natural, unbleached cord, wool or cotton. Because I feel that those natural, I'm able to imbue those things easier with
Yes.
with energy. But this was used for my coven initiations many years ago, and it's not all natural stuff. But
Okay. I've used fishing line
Mm-hmm.
in order to catch something.
Oh, nice.
So it depends on what your intention is, what you're using it for, and really just what your personal preference is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think for me is it's whatever's around, and it's whatever is. If I'm working with the intention of something, if it's from someone, that's great. That's extra special. Some of the resources that I saw, you can use rope, cord, chard, laces, bandages, thread, hair, floss, ribbons, leather, copper wire, thin chains, scarves, twine, anything like that. So think about it in that way. There's a lot of possibilities.
I would say one practical and respectful consideration: if you're gonna tie something on a tree, make sure it's biodegradable, so it actually will
Yes,
eventually fall off that tree and not strangle it, because I've seen people wrap chains and stuff around trees and it grows in. It looks very painful, or it could like totally cut off the branch that's growing around it. So make sure that
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, silk would be great because silk is a natural fiber and it's extremely strong. It's deceptively strong. But I have to say, I really like that idea of using fishing line to catch something. So
you just need to think about what your intention is, and think about appropriate things that would relate to it. That can lead you to using something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Jonathan, some cultures announcing leaving is protocol. Learned that from deaf community. Yes, that's true. And I think it's not the airport. You don't have to announce your departure. Yeah. And that's back to that idea of protecting yourself. So, and questionable energy. You need to prep yourself. And I think, and first of all, I have to say, anytime you are thinking about this, that's good prep.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're drawing attention to. Yeah. Andrea leaves. Yeah. And by the way, Medium Betsy Palmer will be back on Tuesday. Yeah, one can be caught off guard when an energy shifts. Well, it catches me off guard too. When, as a host, that happens.
Yeah.
So, and Archangel Chamuel is the angel for finding things. So I ask him for help me hide things too. Ooh,
I like that.
I like that too. I'm going to leave that up there for a second so that we can all get that, because that's smart.
Mhm.
That's a thinking person's magic.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds like he's muscling in on Saint Anthony's territory. Jonathan has a dream catcher in the shape of the yin yang. So, and so good point, Chris, about the trees. They are living beings.
They are.
Mhm.
And it goes back to that idea. We had that conversation about offerings and leaving offerings. It's like, what do you leave? It's important. And I'm going to ask, can I put this here? Are
Yeah.
you willing to help me?
Yeah.
Because I've had some things go, or if I didn't hear them the first time, they said, no, don't do that. It
Mhm.
immediately falls down. It
Mhm.
becomes apparent that it's like, I'm not supposed to put this here.
Yeah.
So a lot of love for that, Chris.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, it's looking out for the trees.
I think it's really good. Thomas, is the tradition of a necktie part of Not Magic? It is when I tied it,
Yep.
because that was it was part of my morning prayers and my morning routine. When I would be putting the tie on, I would be saying certain things. I would be feeling certain things and making sure that my voice was heard
Mhm.
and I spoke the truth and I spoke well so that everybody could understand.
Yeah.
I have a horseshoe above my door. Does that count? Love this discussion about knots. I will have intention with every knot I tie now. Horseshoes are, I mean, that's a whole different type of magic.
It is. Yeah.
For luck and things like that. So I think
you could do not magic with a horseshoe, though.
Sure.
It has holes in it for
Mhm.
the nails. So
I think everybody, okay, when you're done watching this and you go away and you're tying knots, leave a comment about ways that you've figured out how to incorporate knot magic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, and there are different ways to tie ties.
there are.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. And Calla Lizzie suggested crystals around you.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, and Book is here. Hi, Book. You are right on time. That's why we have playback.
Yes.
So the necktie could block the throat chakra, couldn't it? Yes. And that's why I'm like going, I'm setting the intention of making sure it's clear. Okay, I'm getting through all of the stuff, all of these lovely, lovely comments. Tony said you can't beat bells tinkling. Yes, except when you want it to be silent.
Yes.
I think bells lighten the mood a lot.
They do. They break up energy.
What was that?
They break up energy.
They do break up energy.
I was
Chris,
gonna say,
are you nodding something right now?
if I've got it in my hand, I'm playing with it.
There you go. He's talking about his rope. I mean, he's talking about the thing that he's nodding right now.
I was gonna say bells scatter energy, but break up energy. It's the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. And Andrew also said, okay, yeah, caught off guard. Mindful protection.
Yes.
I like that. Mindful protection.
Mhm.
And identify your bouncer guide and make connection going into energy shifting situations. Yes, because a lot of times our bouncer guide will tell us that it's coming and that we should shift and we should do something different.
Mhm.
My bouncer guide appears and I can see her. There is something up.
And sometimes I think I've felt your bouncer guide show up, haven't I?
You have.
And I'm like going, hi. I'm showing my hands. I'm like going, hi. Deb's invited me. Okay.
That was funny. So.
Well, good, because that's how it was. It was intended to lighten the mood because I was, doodle loodle loo. That's the babble she makes to mimic people speaking, Vela says. That means she wants an earbud. So she's listening now too. Well, hello, Vela. It's nice to have you listening, Vela. 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 Jonathan says, I let my words flow naturally instead of having prescribed words.
Mhm.
I do that sometimes. I like the idea of, for me, I'm hardcore ceremonial magician, in past lives and all that stuff. So the rhythm and the rhyme and the meter is very important to me, except when it's not, because sometimes it's not. But I do, yes, behind me, I do have a rhyming dictionary. So
Juanita's review has asked, what is not magic?
not magic is anything that when you are tying a knot and you do it with intention. It can be used for practically anything.
Yes.
So, getting caught up. Okay.
Okay.
I was just like going, did Angela move? Oh, that would take a big staff to use a horseshoe. So, and Dreamcatcher horseshoe, sure, why not? That could be really interesting to capture the luck and what are all the stuff. I mean, the four of us could sit here and probably come up with about 16, 17 different types of things for it.
At least.
At least, yeah. Tune in the next time. So, we are glad you're here, Kristen Louise. So, and I do love the word tinkle. I think it's funny. Who's naughty? Yeah, naughty. So, okay. And welcome, Juanita's review. Glad you're here. And Michelle Marie, Astrological Tarot, said, Jonathan and I have been watching you all and the best chatters for the last 25 minutes while we work. Look, how could you not find this show magical? That's true. That's true. All right. Yes, a lot of love for Monkey.
Yes.
Love and need of ceremony is hardwired within me.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. I think it's one of those things that if you realize what is hardwired into you and what comes naturally, then lean into that, because it's not natural for me to tie knots like Chris is doing right now, but it is for him. So why not use your natural powers with that?
Mhm.
Yes.
So, okay. Juanita asked for an example. So, if you are tying your child's shoe laces, you can actually speak of protection as you are tying that shoe to protect them. So, and Deanne, thank you, said, Juanita, witches' ladders, tying a knot to harness and later release the energy, wind, storm, etc., tying knots to manifest or protect.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's, Chris has captured all our energy.
I've got you all right here. I've got you right here.
Yeah. Well, but
speaking of that, though, like that was one of the things when they would, before they would imprison witches, they would shave off all their hair so they wouldn't be able to make spells with their hair.
Well, and also if that's why you don't want. That's why you don't want somebody to have any of your hair.
Exactly.
Because they could do that knotting with your hair.
They could.
So, and okay. Yeah. Rain loves watching you be naughty.
I'm taking the knots out now.
There you go. Jonathan said, I've heard that the horseshoe has to have the open end up when catching luck.
Mm-hmm.
If it's opening down, you're spilling out all of the luck.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard that too.
Supposedly, the only one who could do the horseshoe down was the actual blacksmith
Mm-hmm.
above the anvil or the smithing table to pour the magic down onto the anvil.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yes, Juanita. Okay, shoelaces, protect these boys. Absolutely. And let me tell you, okay, come for me, YouTube. I don't think there's anything more powerful than a mother's love to protect their child.
No. It's the most powerful form of magic.
Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, seriously. I mean, good Lord, when a mother loves their child, ain't nothing going to keep her down.
No.
Ain't
Mama
nothing.
bear energy.
Yeah, mama bear energy. All right. And it's hardwired in everyone. I think people suffer from lack of it when they never touch any ceremony or magic. And yeah, sometimes we just don't realize that that's what's missing.
mm-hmm.
But it's like the idea of is when we have routine or ceremony, it brings an energy about it. So if you regularly do not magic, you are tying your shoes, you're tying a bracelet on, you're tying a ribbon, and you are regularly doing something with that, and that builds that energy. So I think it's great. Juanita's review said, when I learned how to tie a knot, I walked all over the store and tied everything.
I love it.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, Calla Lizzie said, you don't want hair. It also goes for nose clippings. Nose clippings. Good Lord. And here, I'm going to play this again since people are here. This section of the video is brought to you by the word not. Everyone say it with me. Not. Not. An interlacement of the parts of one or more flexible bodies forming a lump or knob, as for fastening or tying together. Don't be naughty. Just like, share, and subscribe. Not. I just needed a break because after that, I'm like, on good Lord.
So use another one. That was
Yes.
too funny.
Speak or think clearly and with intention when doing knot work. Yes.
Mhm.
Right, Vela? Make sure that you speak or think clearly and with intention when doing knot work. This is what your mom said. So, and yes, it is true about eyelashes, etc.
It is.
Mhm.
It is.
And of course, Juanita loves their kids. And yes, you are absolutely right, Kristen Louise. So
Kristen made a comment a while back of something called the Valhalla's knot, and I don't know where the comment went, but I think Kristen, then you said that it was the tradition you learned where you were knotting pieces of wood to hang out on the door, or I don't know exactly. I can't remember the comment, but she.
Ooh, I can't find
mentioned
it.
that one.
Kristen Louise also made a comment that if you can knot your nose hair, then that's a problem.
Well, I'm wondering, Gerald, if your mustache grows out long enough, you'd be able to like knot it.
Right now, I'm ignoring all of you. Saying this is going to follow me around. At my 2-year anniversary, people are going, you remember that one time Gerald talked about knotting nose hairs? No.
Kristen put the comment back on there.
Okay,
Valhalla's
thank you.
ladder.
I'll get to it. Book Bewitched. I love undoing knots, untangling jewelry. Wow, undoing knots in people's lives has been my life's career and passion.
Mhm.
And in fact, what's interesting about that, I used to work in a yarn store, and people would get very frustrated when they would, a big knot. And the first thing that they want to do is they want to pull it really tight. And I'm like, stop.
Mhm.
You want to loosen it up. And because what you're doing is it's the same thing with magic. You're loosening that magic up.
Yes.
You have to massage a knot out
Yes.
of
Mhm.
things. You have to massage it out. I love unknotting things just as much as I love knotting them. I'm glad you made that comment because
I think
I've been doing that since I was a little kid. I
Yeah.
love unknotting big tangles of jewelry. I will sit there for hours till I get it all.
Yeah. And Vanessa S is catching the last bit. I'll watch the playback. And every time my son ties his Taekwondo belt, he always says, "No leg cramps today," not knowing it's magic. I love it. This is how we get them. They said first.
Yes.
Okay. Hanging a horseshoe facing upwards in a U shape is said to keep evil out and bring good luck in your homes, Mary Thornberry said.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I had to do something. Jonathan said, I had to do something else to protect my kid. He refuses to wear shoes with laces.
Mhm.
It's a helmet or laces, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is also cool. Okay. Okay. How often do you clip your nose hair, Gerald? Why did I put that up there, Callum? And Robin is right. Think about when you tie up a gift bag, knotting the love and blessing inside. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, we need to incorporate life's rites of passages. Yeah, that's actually something that that I wanted to think about. Is maybe this is a question for an upcoming live or something along those lines. What are the rites of passages now in lives? Because there are certain things we can talk about this after,
Mhm.
but what are the rites of passages that we have and we celebrate today, and how could we augment those? So,
Mhm.
and okay, if you can knot your nose hair, then that's a problem. Yes. Ahala's ladder. Yes, knot together different pieces of wood.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, not having it. Gerald's not having it. Yes. Okay. Maruta. Okay, there was probably a really good comment there that I missed. Shoot. You know what? If you've never made one, you're not crafty enough. Liar. You just have to. I mean, if you can tie an overhand knot or you tie your shoes, you can do knot magic.
Mhm.
It's that simple.
Yep.
I want to, Kristen Louise has said I'd be interested to know any knot spells or rituals to use during grief work. I would look into Victorian mourning jewelry. I think you could get some ideas for grief work in Victorian mourning jewelry, which was primarily made from hair.
Yeah.
Oh, I have seen. When you mentioned that, I'm like, I haven't heard of that. But as soon as you mentioned hair, they would make brooches and things out of it. Yeah,
Yes.
I've seen some examples of that. They're really neat looking.
And I think that you could incorporate some of that for some grief work.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think you could. I'm just thinking on the fly. You could put the elements of your grief. You could tie that into the knots,
Mhm.
and then you hold it and you treasure it, because the grief work is really hard.
It
And
is.
it doesn't follow a straight line. But if you're if you're allowing yourself to feel that grief and you're tying knots, holding that, when the time comes, you can release one, and then you can approach that. You can support yourself through that, letting that go,
Mhm.
through that releasing. I just made that up. So, but I think
And
Sounded really
another way to do that, Joe, would be to make the knots and then bury the whole thing in a special place to release that energy as it disintegrates back it's energy that we have that we can honor. We don't have to hold on to. And when we're ready to get rid of it, the field, the earth knows what to do and can reuse that energy. Just make sure it's biodegradable, of course.
Yeah.
And make your own spells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It will be more important to you, more meaningful to you if you make your own spells.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think, Kristen, Louise, as you're working with this, slow down enough to honor where you are.
Mhm.
Yes.
And it hurts.
Yes.
It hurts. Yeah. Yes, Vanessa S. Braiding or plaiting your hair would count.
Yeah.
If you had a child who had long hair and you were braiding their hair, I of course I'm going to be braiding stuff into that. You know, I think that's cool.
There's people that's popped in since the beginning, but yeah, that's how old knot magic is. Before we could even make string, we could tie things in
Mhm.
our hair. Women would tie it in their hair. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, knots in your stomach, which I have often. Knot magic could help with this. Love this live. Thank you. That's good.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. And think about that, everybody, is in your traditions, when are you hearing the word knot? I have a knot in my back. We're tying the knot. I'm going to tie one on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's bound to do it. These are all things that are they probably originated in some of this cunning work,
Yeah.
Mhm.
conjuring work.
Yes.
So,
I would say if I was doing unknotting magic for muscle cramps and things like that, first I would feel the pain intensely and
yes.
transfer that pain into the cord. And you would want to make sure that you tie loose knots so that you can actually deal with it when you're doing the magical part of it, of releasing later. But you might end up with just a big, roly-poly bundle of cord when you're done. I would hold that over the space, over the knee or the back or the other person or the stomach, and sort of transfer that energy, that painful energy, into the knot that you can then slowly and mindfully release.
Yeah.
So again, practicality. If you're going to do unknotting magic, make sure that your knots aren't tied so tight that they become a burden and a hassle when you're doing the magic. You don't want frustration energy put into your working. So if you're going to unknot it later, make sure it's a loose knot to begin with.
Yeah. And Rain said, "Feel it to heal it," Chris.
Yeah.
And there's some really, really great comments. Maruta said, "I think in grief situation, it would be more about the unknotting to release it." Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I get that. Put it in there and then unknot it. And I have about an 8-inch around covered in knot. I have a log about 8 inches around covered in knots in contrasting color that is polished. I love it. Ooh, my meditation, like knots in the wood. Ooh, that's good. Like that. And Michelle Marie said, I used to be amazing at tying knots in Girl Scouts, but I've never worked with knot magic. I've seen red string ceremonies, a magical cord, maybe stretched or tangled, but never break at unions and weddings.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Andrea said, when we intentionally do ceremony, we invite all energy beings with intentions that are the same intention to participate.
Yes.
I love that. Rites of passage. There you go. Moving the knotted tassel. That's interesting. How do you transfer it? It's in energetic flow. And the transfer, it's also the intent. And
Yeah.
so how do you set your intent? Do you hold it in your hand? Do you whisper into it? Do you breathe into it? Do you burn it?
And Juanita's review, just intent is everything.
Mhm.
Yes.
Intent is everything.
Yeah.
So don't dismiss your intent as something trivial. Your intent is extremely important.
Mhm.
That's really, I mean, in all of these magic tool talks that we've done, Chris, since the beginning, it's always about intent.
Yes.
focus and intent.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And oh yeah, monkeys. Monkeys making Rain's heart melt. And Vanessa S said, "Oh my gosh, I've just realized. Please pardon me. Pardon if I sound silly. I've been doing knots these past 2 weeks, all day, every day, as I'm knitting scarves."
Yes.
We talked about that. Yes, you are completely doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, at times I have actually stopped knitting stuff because I was angry about something. And I'm like, I don't want that in I
Exactly.
don't want that in the knots.
Mhm.
I don't want that. So, okay. It would have to be unknotted many times over to release major grief. It's stubborn. Yeah.
It is stubborn.
Yep. See it, visualize it. Yes. I used to keep an elastic around my finger to remind me of certain things, like stop negative thoughts, stop being impulsive. It's all magic. Well, and think about it is people tied a knot around their finger to remember stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
The putting a rubber band around your wrist to snap it every time you have a craving for a cigarette or whatever it is that you're trying to be mindful of not doing.
Yeah, of not doing. Oh, do your ears hang low? Do the wobble to and throw? So, yeah. I mean, yeah, that song. So, all right, we have been on here for an hour and 42 minutes. The best chatters are still here, some of them. So, thank you all for being here. I don't know what our next Magic Tool Talk Laugh and Learn topic will be. I have some more Laugh and Learns scheduled. I've got some of that stuff planned in October and November, believe it or not, because it's awesome. And tomorrow, Long Stash is doing Mabon readings, and that we are joined with Chris from Elemental Cartomancy.
Mhm.
So y'all want to be there. So that's why people used to tie knots in their hankies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay. And you're welcome, Juanita's review. Thank you, Deanne. And I enjoyed that. Yeah. I did not know that that's why people tied knots in their hankies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I used to carry a handkerchief all the time because my father did. And, one of the things that he said is real men carry knives. So after he died, I started carrying one of his pocket knives around.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Thank you. We enjoyed having you here. Yeah, time flew by. This was such a good topic. Best chatters are here. And Flowing is here. Flowing, that's why there's a playback. That's great. I am so glad you made it too. Tapping my heart to everyone, sending genuine love to all the friends here. Thank you. Thank you. Long Stash. There you go. And seriously, everybody, think about where not magic, binding, tying things, releasing things show up in your lives.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would love to see a whole bunch of comments about that.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I think that'd be great. So this conversation brings me back. Anyone remember knotting friendship bracelets when we were? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We had talked about that. It's great. Jesri is here. But all right. So we will have to, okay. Tony made some beautiful friendship bracelets as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask you what you got coming up, Chris, but we don't have anything scheduled since you're so active making YouTube content. So Angela, Deb, what do you got coming up?
I have garden readings coming up on Sunday at 1 with Diana.
And that's
One
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 Central.
Central.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything scheduled, but I am planning to record a story next week or maybe this week. And I am still in talks with Miss Tarot D Ms. Taro D is very busy.
This Tarot D is busy. I mean, let's just face it. So, Rain said I'm obsessed now. I tied my hair behind my head when I'm feeling hot and frustrated. What's that about? Well, there you go. So, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. We should keep list of knots and the ceremonies and write a collab book. Well, yes, that'll come out right after the Oracle deck.
Yes.
Mhm.
How many cards are you up to?
Oh, there's close to 200. Close to 200. So everybody's links are below. Please like and subscribe. We do appreciate it. Share this video with anybody you think would appreciate it. And seriously, come back and tell us how you're seeing knots and laces and bindings and tying and releasing in your everyday life. I think that'd be cool. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you, everybody.
bye.